All right, welcome to Beyond the Fundamentals. Let me get rid of this thing up here so we can see you. Yeah, we are here with Stephen Kirk, who has an interest in prophecy here. For everybody who's watching, we've had Stephen on before. It's been years. By the way, thanks for coming on. It's,
Glad to be here.
I appreciate you coming on. You've got a very interesting book that you published back in 2011, it looks like, the first time. Satan
Yeah.
is Barack Obama.
Yes.
And I've kind of been keeping my eye on current events with this in mind. So what and you seem to, we talked a little bit on the phone the other day. You seem to keep track of current events, things like that. What do you think about Pope Francis passing away and what all's possibly going to happen with the Catholic? This is very interesting. We didn't know that was going to happen when we planned to do this, so it's very interesting that it happened today. You got any thoughts on Pope Francis's passing?
Well, I would say he's like the first Spanish speaking pope. And there is a false gospel called the Gospel of Barnabas
Mm-hmm.
that dates from like the Middle Ages. And it was during the, what do they call it? Not the insurrection, but where they were kicking the Muslims.
The Inquisition or the
Inquisition, yeah.
Crusades? Yeah.
Big words got me, the Inquisition. And so this guy tried to meld Christianity and Islam together. And then he inserted this false gospel into the library of the Vatican. So to me, it's like, it's a Spanish speaking Pope. He probably is familiar with this Gospel of Barnabas. And if there is a link to where they use that to propel, a common religion, that could be dangerous.
Yeah. I didn't know this till I started looking this up, but he was the first Jesuit, wasn't he? The first Jesuit Pope?
Yes, and they have a lot of political and military ideas in their history, and that's about as much as I know about the Jesuits. In fact, I thought I was heard somewhere that they were never supposed to be a Jesuit pope, but obviously that's passed.
So, well, this kind of like when we talk about different theories of the Antichrist, I guess I'll show this real quick. Protestants, I guess, since Martin Luther, have very readily considered that like the Pope has always been at the top of somebody's list as for who the Antichrist might be. And I figured we'd start with that today since it's weird that won't stay away. I thought we might start with that today since due to recent events. I don't want to I don't know, like I know there's a lot of I don't want to come across as disrespectful if anybody is out there who is Catholic who does that kind of thing. But so we're just talking about the historic views of these things, not necessarily trying to cast accusations or disparage anyone, anything like that.
Well, I would just point out that the Pope thought Martin Luther was the Antichrist, and
Yeah.
the Martin Luther thought the Pope was Antichrist. And then, of course, in some of your research, some of that antagonism still continues about the Lutherans and the Catholic Church.
Well, it seems that it almost seems like whoever the bad guy of the day is, that's the Antichrist. That everyone you get for example, back during World War II, Hitler was the Antichrist, or Mussolini was going to be the Antichrist. And so if you're like during the Cold War, a lot of prophecy stuff was blaming everything on, Russia is going to come from the north and all this kind of stuff from Ezekiel 38 and all that.
Yeah, we've all suffered from those things.
And then of course you got we got the war going on in the Middle East, and then this book by Waleed Shabat and Joel Richardson comes out, God's War on Terror, and then that they're saying that some kind of Muslim leader is going to be the Antichrist, and then it turns out that Waleed Shabat is a he's a Catholic, and so maybe he's motivated, trying to direct attention away from Catholicism. Who knows?
Yeah, I have shared. I think one insight that Waleed Shabbat provided us is that the Greek 666,
Yeah,
written by John in the Revelations, is a very close uh, pictorial match to Allah
yeah,
Akbar.
yeah,
And of course, Allah Akbar is on almost every Muslim nation's flag.
yeah.
So I think that that nails it for me that the Antichrist will be a Muslim or Muslim supported.
Yeah. So what if we go ahead and look at some of this Muslim supporting? I want to bring up. You have some slides on this real quick, and I don't want to read all of these in extreme detail, but maybe just hit some of these highlights where the biblical prophecy points. Now, this is a summary basically of Walid Shabbat's work. Walid Shabbat claiming that the Antichrist will be a Muslim called the Mahdi, or he will be a Muslim caliphate. And some of those issues, like I'm going to make my laser pointer here. The biblical prophecy points to the Middle East, not to Europe. He sees the beast empires as Islamic in nature, and Islamic caliphate in a future is the Ottoman Empire and a future Islamic empire. The mark of the beast he sees as Islamic symbols, and so the Arabic script for 666 in the name of Allah. Interestingly, in First John, the Antichrist denies the Father and the Son, and of course, Islam is very well known for its denial of any kind of Father, Son, any kind of Trinity type stuff. Muslim eschatology mirrors Christian end times, but flipped the other way around. And then there's geographic indicators and prophecy. Anyway, those kinds of things for Walid Shabbat. So you do think that the Antichrist is going to be at least a Muslim sympathizer?
I think the false prophet is the one that makes a good match for a Muslim.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the title of my book, Obama is the most Muslim president we have.
Yeah.
So he has got influence there. I mean, he hung around through college with a bunch of Pakistanis, and he's, you've heard all his statements in the news
Mm-hmm.
about how sympathetic he is to Muslims, and how derogatory he has, made comments about the Bible and Christians and our guns and our Bibles and, our religion.
Yeah, I heard him say that the Islamic call to prayer was one of the most beautiful sounds he's ever heard, that kind of thing.
And yeah, that's kind of off the wall there. It's the scariest thing I've heard. I've been to Oman. I have been to Qatar. So,
And then of course, officially he claims to be Christian, but going to a church with Jeremiah Wright as the pastor, I don't know how Christian that is exactly.
Yeah.
Let's see what else we got here. The next theory that I've heard floated around is that Judas Iscariot is going to be the Antichrist, and like he's going to be resurrected. You've heard this one, yes?
I read your work on it, and I would agree that there's only two people in the Bible that are described as sons of perdition, and perdition is the Greek word for destroyer, just chaos. So, I think I was looking up his name, Iscariot.
Yeah.
The Karioth means cities, so it's almost like I picture Judas Iscariot as being sort of your urban,
interesting,
elitist.
Kind of like how Cain was the first one to build a city. I thought Kirioth was the name of a city in Moab.
It is, and when you look at the King James and they say they translate, well, what does Kerioth mean? And they says cities. I don't know how
Okay.
they get there. I know that the straight up word for city is
Yeah.
but so Kerioth must mean something, some kind of a urban, maybe urban cities or something like that. So
Yeah, interesting. So when people say Judas Iscariot, a lot of people may not make the connection that when they say Iscariot, they're saying Ish Kirioth, Ish Kirioth, which is man of Kirioth, which is either the place or, like you're saying, the definition, cities, man of cities, or man of that city. Yeah.
yes,
So there's a few little arguments for him. He's called the son of perdition. The Antichrist clearly called the son of perdition in Second Thessalonians 2, or whoever this end times person is. Like, I want to clarify that the actual term, the actual phrase Antichrist is something that John refers to as like a spirit that's already present. And so the end times leader biblically isn't actually called that, but that's how we're using the term because it's got colloquial acceptance that way, even if that's a bad practice. And then when Jesus talks about losing Judas, I've lost none of them except the son of perdition, that scripture might be fulfilled. He refers to Judas as the son of perdition. So that connection is made. He's possessed by Satan. He went to his own place. He's called a devil in John 6:70. He's got betrayal parallels. So a lot of that comes from A.W. Pink. And then Ruckman has some connections that he talks about as well, or talked about as well. Out of Judas will be resurrected. He'll come out of a bottomless pit. He's called the man of sin. And then some say Apollyon Abaddon is another title for Judas. And then he's from Kirioth. And then Clarence Larkin also has he connects Antichrist with Judas as well. So that'd be kind of interesting if Judas somehow shows up. So if you think, if somebody thinks that Barack Obama is the Antichrist, how would this connect? Would we say that he's got like the spirit of Judas? Kind of like maybe John the Baptist had the spirit of Elijah, or Elisha had the spirit of Elijah, something like that? Or is it him
yes. I
reincarnated?
think I think you described it exactly, but go ahead.
Oh yeah, or is it him reincarnated? Yeah, I'm just kind of throwing little things out there. Like, how would if Obama is the Antichrist and Judas is the Antichrist? How does that connect?
Yeah,
Or does it connect for you?
it connects to the extent they would be bosom buddies. They probably have the same attitudes, the same urban elitist, trying to manipulate God into making the world they want to see. Judas wanted to see Jesus restore the power of the Jews over the Romans, and so all of that is trying to manipulate God, and that's definitely goes wrong, goes south.
Yeah, they have that in common for
But
sure.
reincarnation, no, that's not gonna go. Uh, some of that A.W. Pink and some of these people that are former theosophy is theosophy.
Yeah, Theosophy, founded
That's,
by Helena Petrovna Blavatsky.
yeah, that's a
Yep.
Gnostic cult, and it's all kinds of strange stuff there. So just all that, anything about that reincarnation is not healthy.
Yeah, that's interesting. I have a few more things on Judas, but I think the main point is kind of been told. People can look that up. The idea that the Roman Catholic Pope is the Pope. Now, are you familiar with the prophecy of Saint Malachi or Malachi? I'm not sure how it's pronounced.
No, I'm not.
So this is very interesting. I've been trying to, ever since we talked, I've been trying to look this up because I remember people talking about this in some of my Baptist circles. But apparently, there is a book called The Prophecy of the Popes or something like that, and it was written by Saint Malachi from the 12th century, and then it was published in 1595 by Arnold de Wyon. And it has 112 mottos describing the popes that would follow. And apparently, huh, Saint Pope Francis was the 112th, and that's supposed to end things, and there will not be another pope. And then some people disagree, and they think that he was actually the 111th, and there will be one more. But I think that's kind of interesting that they have this prophecy, and they draw all kinds of connections between this guy's statements, and it correlates with the Pope's to some degree of accuracy. I don't know a whole lot about it, but I think it's interesting that there's a lot of um, interest around, or I don't know if it's conspiracy theorizing around the end of the papacy coming up because of this guy's prophecies.
Uh, well, it's interesting. I guess that's all I can say.
Yeah.
It uh, I one thing. There's a certain point where it talks describing the Antichrist and his abuse of the Jews. It says he will be given an army, and I kind of
Hmm.
look at the Pope as in former times. Yeah, they were sort of given crusaders, but the only entity that is sort of given an army in recent history has been the UN
Huh.
in order to establish like a North Korea South Korea peace, or something in the Middle East.
Yeah.
So to me, I think the Catholic Church doesn't have the military ability to function as the Antichrist.
Yeah. There's a book called Islamic Invasion, and it's very interesting to me because it was written before 9/11. Now, of course, after 9/11, a lot of people jump on this bandwagon of, Islam is the bad guys, but this book was written before 9/11, Islamic Invasion. And then there's another guy, Alberto Rivera, who was a former Jesuit priest, and their stories kind of match, where the story kind of goes like this. The Pope of the 6th century needed some manpower for some crusades, and went and got some Middle Easterners. And there was a bright young leader who was running military crusades on behalf of the Pope, and then kind of went rogue and ultimately founded Islam by going rogue, having been corralled under the papacy for the military arm, and then goes rogue. But I'm not an expert on that. I'm trying to look over here and see if I can grab that book out of my little stack here. I think I can. Nope. That's just what everybody wants to see. It's called Islamic Invasion by Robert Morey. It might be difficult to get a hold of, but I would, if you can, might want to grab that. I think it's linked on my website. I'm not sure. But that's an interesting historic link to between Catholicism and the origin of Islam, that a lot of people have never heard that story before. So anyway, huh.
What year was that? I'm just curious. What year did this
Yeah,
rogue guy?
this guy. He wrote this book. Robert Morey wrote this book in 1992.
But the rogue person that he's describing.
Oh, I mean, it was. He's saying that was Muhammad.
Oh, the Muhammad.
Yeah, the Muhammad. That was Muhammad. That's how Muhammad got his start.
Well, they describe Muhammad as a white man, which I thought, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that is
That's from
interesting.
people in his own day.
Aha. Yeah, that is interesting. There have been a lot of people that have. I'm going to make this a little bigger. That have referred to the papacy as the Antichrist, going all the way back to Luther, of course. And then, of course, people like John MacArthur, David Reagan, Ian Paisley referred to John Paul II as the Antichrist. Alberto Rivera, I don't even know this guy's name. A schismatic group off the Catholics, I guess. So then there's this entity called the Black Pope, and that is not a reference to race. That is a reference to the clothes that are worn by this person. I had him pulled up. I think is Susa, the whoever the Grand General of the Jesuits is like the Black Pope. And the way I've heard it described is this guy is behind the scenes, kind of like if you are familiar with the term deep state that has become popularized in the United States with regard to governmental actions. There's some kind of deep state thing going on. Basically, there's like a deep state pope who kind of runs things behind the scenes, who is usually the head of the Jesuits, and that he might be the Antichrist. That's another theory that's floating around out there. I don't know if you've heard much about that.
Well, I could imagine that would be easily facilitated with history of the Catholic Church in Rome.
This is interesting from a Roman. Unless that's substantiated, it's just as likely as Tom Holland's theory that Islam was basically a Christian Arab branch, which, like Roman Catholicism, was once a religion, which became empire. Yeah, I mean I just encourage people to check it out for themselves. It's very interesting, though. Very interesting. And then, yeah, we see some people in the chat saying that Trump is the Antichrist. And of course, any political leader is going to be called the Antichrist. I know when John F. Kennedy got shot, all the people said, "Well, there's the wound to the right eye," and they were kind of waiting for him to raise from the dead 3 days later to prove he was the Antichrist. So anyway, this guy it's referred to as the Black Pope, and he's basically the Pope that kind of really runs things. Kind of like when Biden was president, everybody knows he's not the real president. Everybody knows there's something going on behind the scenes, and somebody else is running the show, or some other group of people is running the show. It's the same kind of thing is what's presumed here. And now again, I'm just throwing these out there. I'm not trying to say for or against any of these, but they're just kind of interesting to have on the radar.
Well, it's interesting that it's the Muslims that say that the Antichrist will be a one-eyed guy. So he's lost one of his eyes. So maybe that's where your comment about JFK. Some people thought that was, a verification of an Islamic prophecy. Which like you pointed out, there is a lot of coincidentalness between what Islamic end times versus our end times.
Yeah, I think there's I have my PowerPoint covering up my logos right now, so I can't access it. But I think there's a Bible verse. I think it's in one of the minor prophets. That the Antichrist will be wounded in the right eye and will recover from it, something like that.
Satan's always a copycat, so
right.
I think that's all that Satan's doing. He's just trying to figure out a way to copy enough of what God knows is going to happen, but twist it so that he can deceive as many people as possible.
Yeah, I think it's Zechariah 11:15. And it says, "The Lord said unto me, Take unto thee instruments of a foolish shepherd, for lo, I'll raise up a shepherd in the land which shall not visit those that be cut off, neither shall seek the young, nor heal that is broken, nor feed that standeth still. But he shall eat the flesh of the fat, and tear with the claws in pieces. Woe to the idle shepherd that leaveth the flock. The sword shall be upon his arm, and upon his right eye. His arm shall be clean dried up, and his right eye shall be utterly darkened." So that's kind of interesting. Speaking of these kinds of description of what kind of a leader the Antichrist will or will not be, Ruckman always said that the most descriptions of the Antichrist that you get are in the book of Job. When each of the three friends, including Job, when they're describing how the unrighteous person acts, and what happens to the unrighteous person, Ruckman was saying that those are actually descriptions of the unwitting prophetic descriptions of the Antichrist, and that the most information we have about describing the Antichrist is found in the book of Job, which I always found that very fascinating, that somebody would observe that and say that.
Well, I guess evil is evil, so it makes sense there would be some correspondence there.
Evil is as evil does. So then, the next candidate we have is the line of the Merovingian kings. Have you heard this much?
I guess the one thing, yeah, I mean, I guess that all comes from what Dan, what's his name?
Well, Dan Brown
Dan Brown.
popularized this research or this line of thinking, this school of thought, in his book, The Da Vinci Code. But the line of thinking comes from a few books. One of them is Holy Blood, Holy Grail by Bajent Lee and Lincoln. And then there's another one by the same three people called The Messianic Legacy. And so everything that Dan Brown is writing about in the Da Vinci Code, which I could hold that book up too, really comes from these two books and these authors and their opinion or theories that they put forth. And essentially, it's that Mary Magdalene had a biological child with Jesus, and that because of that, she was rushed off to Europe somewhere, and I'm very much shortening the story. And the Holy Grail, the San Grail, the holy bloodline is not like the cup that Jesus drank from. It's not a physical cup. The concept of a chalice is a rudimentary symbol for a female. And so the chalice which bore the blood of Jesus was the woman who bore his bloodline, who was exiled off into hiding so that she wouldn't be persecuted. And then, of course, that child, of course, the Freemasons are working with the Priory of Zion and the Knights Templar and all this, and they're building places for these people to be kept safe in their line. And then you have the Merovingian line of kings claims that it comes from this lineage. And then some people speculate that one day when there will be some kind of European leader that rises up and says that they are a literal descendant of Jesus of Nazareth. I'm looking at some of these comments too. So that's another theory that's out there.
It sounds like it could fool a lot of ignorant people, but it's so Jesus having a child is so antithetical to everything in the Bible that only those people with minimal biblical background could fall for that. But
Yeah.
you never know.
Yeah, you never know. You never know what'll work. Let's see what I have here. I think that's enough getting into that. And then Lord Maitreya. You ever heard of Lord Maitreya?
This goes back to that theosophy, doesn't it? Right, ties with that.
Well, kind of, yeah. So the idea here is that there is this guy who would wind up being, trying to advance slides here. This guy who would wind up being the next Buddha would also fill the role of, he'd be some coming world teacher who would be the Christ consciousness and the fifth Buddha and the Imam Mahdi and Krishna. He would be all these things. One person would be all of these things and would be able to unify all religions and bring them into a global religion. And he was popularized by a guy named Benjamin Krim back in the day. Now, back in the 80s, I remember all the independent Baptists were preaching all the sermons against these New Agers and stuff. And so they were convinced that Lord Maitreya was going to be the Antichrist and show up anytime. And we are hearing sermons about it, had tapes about it. Watch out for Maitreya; he's going to get you.
Well,
you missed those sermons? Did you miss those? You didn't go those days?
No, I didn't go those days. But I would say this, to the extent that the Antichrist will blaspheme and say that he is God.
Yep.
That it fits with New Age philosophy and foundations. And the one person that fits with that would be like I just talking out loud, Oprah Winfrey. You know, she's into the New Age
Yep.
and that we're all gods and things like that. So that to me kind of moves. You know, the Antichrist will be wounded to near death and recover. So obviously, if he comes back with some, you know, a near death vision and whatever Satan puts in his mind, then you could see where he would also agree with Oprah. And basically, Oprah is like literally whoring around with New Age religions and all the demonic things that go with it. So I would say I'm locked in on you know who, but
Yeah.
I would say the question is who is going to be the whore of Babylon. Now I
Yeah.
say that because you know the U.S. is Babylon, which will be destroyed due to persecution of the prophets and the saints, which is said 3 times in Revelation. It says that the whore of Babylon, which is the U.S., the leader of the U.S., will be destroyed because of the blood of the saint prophets and the saints. So I think as we're looking at Kamala, we're looking at AOC. I think they're both terrible candidates,
So
but
you're looking at specific women who would fill that role, like individual women.
yes, I think. I mean, the fact that you have this Babylon's most powerful empire, if you will, at the end times, and it's going to be destroyed because it's anti-Christian, and the fact that it's female, all of a sudden you get this end time ruler.
Yeah.
Not in addition to the Antichrist, that is the whore of Babylon. So she's a spiritual whore that will abuse Christians.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, the book that used to, for years and years, used to be the definitive book on um both kind of Catholicism, really, was called The Two Babylons by Alexander Hislop. Um, most that was the definitive work, and then what would probably be the definitive work today, and I don't have a physical copy. I have it on Kindle though. Would be Dave Hunt's book, A Woman Rides the Beast. And the standard line of prophecy was that the whore of Babylon was the Catholic Church. So you're saying it's going to be probably a specific female political leader of some kind?
Yes, and in fact, that's in my book about why the U.S. is Babylon, and of course, we've had of course Hillary Clinton, and then we missed a bullet there, and we really missed a bullet with Kamala.
Ah,
So that to me, that's the where is this black female or whoever they're searching for going to come from? I mean, she may
yeah,
come from out of nowhere, like Obama did,
yeah,
and be the person that the Bible describes as the whore of Babylon. Because the Democrat Party is they're hopeless right now. They're searching for anybody, and to me, if I had to say who's the most dangerous person that could lead the Democrat Party right now, I'd say Oprah. She's rich, she's talented, she's a good communicator. She comes from out of the entertainment industry, just like Donald Trump. So
yeah.
she could be and she's black and she's female. She could be the Donald
So
Trump.
what does her being black have to do with it? I'm not following you there.
Well, I just think they're searching for a black female, like
Oh, because for
their
the
their
optics and
DEI back.
demographics, and all, yeah.
Yeah, their
Okay.
DEI pressure.
Yeah, so that's interesting. That would be an interesting answer. Although, of course, Trump will be this is his last term. He can't run again. And I guess the people that think that he's the Antichrist will he'll I guess they think he'll find a way to stay in power or to escalate to be ruler of more than one country.
Well,
Especially if we buy Canada and Greenland, you know.
we know who. Look who has stayed in power through 2 terms, and then a third term with Joe Biden, and who knows? He keeps coming back. And he ruined Trump's first term. So we
Putin?
see that he's holding on to power, living in Washington D.C. That's Obama.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Huh. Yeah, we're getting comments. This video is oddly divisively political for this channel. I should have a disclaimer that says, nothing said on here represents the thoughts of Beyond the Fun. We explore different viewpoints. And some people make the mistake that because we explore different viewpoints that we necessarily advocate for them. I just want to know what they are. I just want to make sure I understand what the viewpoint is what I'm trying to do. There was something I was going to say with that whole thing, and it slipped my mind.
Well, I would say I'm for truth. Whatever the truth is, let's go for the truth, which matches reality. So
yeah. Usually we don't cover a lot of prophecy stuff on this channel, and I'm actually thinking about doing a series on the Book of Revelation that shows how the Book of Revelation could also serve as a map for personal transformation, for how it works. So that'd be kind of interesting. If I can get to that. Will the AC be half Syrian, half Jewish? Yeah, that's a lot of things like that. So I want to hit a couple theories real quick. Contemporary theories of who people tend to think the Antichrist might be out of people who are alive today. All right. So from people who are alive today, some of the leading contenders are Emmanuel Macron, and I saw somebody already listed him earlier. I think Roddy K put him on there. It surprised me for Macron to do that. Donald Trump, we've had him mentioned in the comments several times here. King Charles III. I think the first person, somebody commented a whole bunch right at the beginning before we even said anything. And I don't know who they were, but that's kind of person that probably needs to go get their own channel to say all the stuff they were saying. They had this big long thing about why King Charles was the Antichrist. Some people are saying Elon Musk, and some people are saying Barack Obama. And I got some more of these things here. Pope Francis, of course, he would have to resurrect if that were going to be the case at this point. This slide deck was made before Pope Francis passed away, in case anybody knows. Jared Kushner. I don't even know some of these names. Vladimir Putin, Prince William. Interesting names here. So now your book goes into the reasons why you think Barack Obama is going to be that guy, right? Can you summarize and just take us through some of the major reasons that led you to this conclusion?
Well, you have a verse, Luke 10:18.
Yep.
Spoken by Jesus, so it's Jesus' own words. And he says, I beheld Satan as Barak falling. Now, those words are, you can't argue it. The head of New Orleans Baptist Seminary, where I got my degree from, agrees with that. He said the word lightning in Hebrew is the word Barak in Hebrew means lightning.
Yep.
And there are people in the Bible, like there's a Barak as a military Jew that defeated, one of the Canaanite tribes or something like that. And his name was Barak. And of course, lightning is throughout the Bible.
Right.
So here you have Jesus saying, I beheld Satan as Barak falling, like falling as in being cast into hell.
Yeah.
And after that, three things happen. First, Jesus starts, it's the happiest moment of his entire ministry. It's like they say he's rejoicing in the Holy Spirit, that he's exulting. It's almost like I visualize him high-fiving his disciples. And his disciples, they don't know. Well, what are you so happy about? Well, Jesus has seen the end of the movie. He has seen the final step of the defeat of Satan, where
Yeah.
he cast the Antichrist into hell. And then right after that, Jesus said, "Kings and prophets have desired to hear what you just heard,
Mm-hmm.
and have not heard it." And also, he says, uh, he says, "This has been hidden, or this will be hidden from the wise and the prudent, but revealed to babes."
Mm-hmm.
So you have theologians that well, for one thing, there was no Barack with any power, worldwide power, until the Barack Obama showed up on the scene.
Yeah.
And of course, he went right to the top, almost facilitated by all kinds of,
Like a Manchurian candidate kind of
yeah,
thing.
like George Soros and all those guys supporting him.
Yeah.
And Manchurian candidate too would also fit. So he's been facilitated by Satan in being where he's at, and of course now he's still holding on to power. He's tied to Muslim, and also just some of his personal life. I'll call it gay tendencies.
Mm.
This is in Dinesh D'Souza's book, where he says Barack Obama was babysat by a man that ultimately become a transvestite. Now, you think about a young boy, 5 or 6 years old, who his mother was off studying archaeology in Indonesia, and he's constantly being babysat by a future transvestite. And of course, there's things in the news like uh, his autobiography, not autobiography, his biography written by I can't remember the name of the professor up in Chicago, but he comments. Some of his girls comment.
Cornel West.
Some of his girlfriends commented about him having dreams about sex with men.
Yeah.
And also, there's people that have come out in the news where have testified having male relations with Barack Obama.
There's a passage in Daniel 11:37 says, "Neither shall he regard the God of his fathers, nor the desire of women, nor regard any God, for he shall magnify himself above all." So some people have taken that phrase, "nor the desire of women," to possibly indicate some kind of homosexuality.
Right. And so he fulfills all the list of like I'm talking like 16 items. I sent you a copy of that, but he fulfills all the scriptural requirements of he hates the Jews. He's got military power. He's got political power. He's been called the Messiah by certain left wing groups. So everything matches so far.
Yeah.
Now, if he dropped dead tomorrow, then I would love that. Then I could say, "Oops, I'm very sorry. I was wrong."
Yeah. I mean, you would love the fact that the Antichrist isn't on the scene. Yeah.
But the key is that statement by Jesus, "I beheld Satan as Barack Obama falling." And that's what's in my book. That's what's documented in my book. In fact, I went 2 years thinking, well, surely someone will document this better than a YouTube video. And after 2 years, I said, well, I'll document it and add it to my book, which was basically about how America is Babylon and America will be destroyed.
Yeah. Yeah, there's the destruction of America. I don't know if anybody can see that. Right there in your book. Chapter 4. And the book isn't super long. The book is it's what? Not even 85 pages. It's 84 pages. Yeah, it's 83 pages, including endnotes.
Yeah, it's intentionally short, and cheap, so that people can read it. And it's available for free download at the website.
Yeah, and I have a link I have a link in the description of this video where people can go to your website. They should be able to click on your website from that video. So what else? What else about Barack Obama? You said you had a list, and I know you said you gave me the list. Do you remember it off the top of your head, the list of requirements that the Antichrist has to meet that he meets?
Yeah, I'll find it right here. Here it is. Okay. Okay, he's wounded to near death but recovers. That's Revelations 13:14.
So that happened with Obama already?
No, but it will in the future. It's something to look toward.
Okay, something to look for,
yeah, that's what's really going to set him off. You can imagine if he's wounded to near death and recovers, and he's severely handicapped. You can imagine the hatred that would fill him.
Yeah.
So he's going to make war with the saints. That's Revelations 13:7. Unbelievers will bow down to him. He's already the Europeans love him. The left loves him. He kills those who will not bow down to him. I mean, these are like scripture verses that everybody knows. I'll kind of, well, he controls economic markets, and that's part of the Muslim thing that they control all the economics.
Well, I guess some people would probably bring Trump in on that with all the tariffs.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, Trump is ultimately a free market man, but the Muslim, the Muslims, they, will not allow people to buy or sell if you're a Christian.
Right.
That's their policy. I mean, that's their written in their Quran.
Yeah, you have to pay some kind of zakat tax or something like that.
Yeah, and
to be there.
That's right. Let's see. Okay, he claims he's God, so I mean, people are already calling him the Messiah. In Daniel 8:12, it says he will fling truth to the ground. So he's a deceiver. In Daniel 11 through 8, Daniel 8, 11 through 14, and 9:27, it talks about he halts Jerusalem's Wailing Wall prayers for 3.5 years. Now, most people don't see that because, it's talking about the sacrifice will be stopped. Well, the only sacrifice that's going on now in Jerusalem is not cattle or sheep. The only sacrifice that's going on now is that the Wailing Wall. And of course, that's all that's left of the temple. And here's what really kind of brings that to fore. In Daniel 8:14, it says he destroys not the temple, but the foundation of the temple. Well, the foundation of the Jewish temple, all that is the Wailing Wall. That's all they got left.
Well, yeah. Well, there's also a theory that where the Wailing Wall is not actually where the temple was. The temple was further north on the mount, and that the Wailing Wall is actually part of Fort Antonia. There's a book about that. I had to borrow that book back in like 2013, and they wanted it back, and I haven't been able to find that book since. But it's about the Temple Mount and how when they rebuild the temple, it doesn't have to be where everyone's thinking it has to be.
Well, it just sounds like someone justifying the rebuilding of the temple. And all I'm saying is that don't wait for a temple to get rebuilt. It can happen tomorrow. In fact, he says Daniel 8:12 says that this Antichrist is given. Notice he's given an army to stop Wailing Wall prayers. So, this is this you can imagine. Here's something Barack Obama specifically did, and I read the book. Barack Obama on December the 23rd, within like 2 or 3 weeks before he left the presidency, he allowed the UN to vote that the Wailing Wall and in Jerusalem, major parts of Jerusalem, were occupied territory. That means that people, like even Netanyahu, if he is prohibiting, uh, if he's holding on to occupied land, then he's in violation of international law, and the UN could literally, detain him or arrest him. So that now every president before Barack Obama has said no, the Jerusalem belongs to the Jews, but not Barack Obama. He specifically let that go on December 23rd, right before he left office. So he's setting it up for the Wailing Wall to be the ground zero of really pissing off the Jews.
Yeah, wow.
All right. I'm gonna skip. Here's another place where people sort of misinterpret things. It says this is Daniel 11:38, and basically says that Barak honors a false god of refugees, as in open borders. The word used for fortress, a god of fortress, is actually a god of refuge. So I don't need to tell everybody what the refuge, how Europe has been used as a refuge for the Middle East, and now we're being used as a refuge. And in the Democrat or Barack Obama, Joe Biden mentality, that is their priority. It's their false god of it's their ethical. That's their ethics, to bring in all these refugees and then reward them with all sorts of benefits.
So, interestingly, back in the Independent Baptist days, in my Independent Baptist days, if you look at the King James Bible in Daniel 11:38, it says, "But in his estate shall he honor the God of forces," where most other translations say something like fortresses or something like that. It says a God of forces, and a God whom his father knew not shall he honor with gold and silver. And they used to use that to preach against Star Wars. I'm not kidding. I wish that was a joke. That is not a joke.
Well, I would back that. Why I'm calling that refuge and refugees is because that same word. I think it's Moab or something like that, is the same word in the psalm that we're familiar with. It says that my God, you are my fortress.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Our God he's not blocks and pits and moats. He is our refuge.
Mm-hmm.
And so that word is better translated refuge. And in fact, another thing along that line says that this is in Daniel 11:39. It says he acts against the strongest refuges via land and wealth redistribution.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the strongest refuges are Europe and, of course, the U.S. So we're being destroyed by land and wealth redistribution. Well, that's basically socialism. And, of course, it's throwing us into debt. And I don't need to rehearse the news.
Uh-huh.
Well, this is the last thing I'll throw in because it's unique. This is Daniel 11:43. It says that he has power over Egypt's wealth and the peoples of Libya and Africa. And the way it expresses it, it says that the people of Africa, Cush or in Libya, will follow upon the Antichrist, follow upon his heels. In other words, they follow him like he's their hero. And I would say, well, why on earth would it pick out this one verse to, in at Cush or in at, which is Africa? And I said, well, that must be a racial thing. In other words, that he becomes a black hero to, fight against colonialism. And in fact, if you knew Barack Obama's father, I've read his book. I've read the books about him too. His father blamed the British colonialism for every single problem Kenya had.
You mean Barack Obama Sr. or Frank Marshall Davis? Which father are you talking about?
Well, I'm talking about, senior, Barack Obama
Oh, okay.
Senior.
Okay.
Yeah, well, he was a political guy, and he blamed everything on colonialism. In other words, if it wasn't for colonialism, the white man wouldn't have stole from us, and we'd all be, happy and wealthy, and I'd have a big house. All that colonialism is what they blame everything on. So it's a racist thing. And of course Barack Obama is his dad is black. They're from Africa, from Kenya.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, what? Like, I'm out of questions and stuff. Really. I mean, you've laid some things out there. So, um, you want to expound on anything, or dig into anything else, or look at comments online?
Um, I'm open. I think I've probably opened up enough things for people to uh, talk about. If I
Yeah, we
think
got
of
a few.
something else, I'll tell you.
No, we got a few comments coming in. Of course, with a topic like this, comments are kind of all over the place. Let me see what we got here.
Oh, wait, I'll say one thing.
Yeah,
Uh, when I dealt with the question when Barack Obama left the presidency, the question to me became, well, how will this guy get back in power? And I began
yeah,
to read the book Daniel Revisited by another engineer,
uh-huh,
and uh, basically I prepared a YouTube video that summarizes his book about the coming Middle East wars, which will be started by Iran. And my
okay,
YouTube video is named Four Horses of the Apocalypse.
yeah,
So what you're going to have is Iran's going to start a war, probably holding a nuclear bomb in their hand, saying, "I will use a nuclear bomb if you mess with me." And they will just tear up the Middle East. We're talking about a bloodbath, Shia against Sunnis, that kind of
yeah,
a bloodbath.
yeah,
And then you're going to have the peace broker will be none other after it's a huge bloodbath. The rest of the world's going to say, we've got to clear this up because the price of oil has gone through the roof. Everybody's dead. A lot of people are dead in the Middle East. And they will go to none other than Barack Obama to be the power broker uh, through, via the UN to clean up the mess because he is a favorite of the Western left. He's a Muslim, we already talked about that.
mm-hmm,
And he will be the guy that can be like the little horn that will come in and have power in the Middle East. And of course, when he abuses the Jews, and then you get the 7 year tribulation, I could go on and on. So that's how Barack Obama will come back in power as the UN peace broker. And of course, we know that the Antichrist signs a 7 year covenant with
mm-hmm.
Israel to assure peace. And then after 3.5 years, he breaks that covenant and all hell breaks loose.
Yeah, yeah. That's So yeah, I kind of wanted to, when we talked on the phone a couple days ago, I kind of wanted to have you come on later and talk about how you understand the issue with Iran playing out, because that'd
Well,
be.
I've got a 50-minute video on that
Oh, you already
also.
have. Yeah.
Yeah.
How long ago did you make that video?
I made it about a year after I made a video on Satan as Barack Obama.
Oh, okay. So yeah, okay. So it's been a minute. Yeah, I'll go check that out. Um,
That's a whole all the symbols of the ram and the goat and the bear and all that symbology. The way I start the video, I would say, this is so important that God tells us 4 different ways what's going to happen in the end times Middle East wars. He tells us through the 4 horses of Revelation, the 4
mhm.
horses of the Apocalypse. He tells us through the bear and the leopard and the lion. He tells us again, and also he tells us through actual history. You know, the
Yeah.
Babylonian conquest, the Greek conquest, the Persians. You know, and the final the beast, the mystery beast, which is Islam. That's also in there. So it puts it all together, that all that symbology, and it really nails it.
Yeah, that is very interesting. I had chills run down my back one time when Barack Obama, he'd either just made the presidency, he'd either just been elected, or he it was in the heat of the campaign, something like that. And Jamie Foxx referred to Barack Obama as our Lord and Savior, Barack Obama. And I just about fell out of my chair. I'm like,
Whew.
how do you? I mean, I can't even have those words come out of my mouth, uh, just as quoting somebody else without feeling like I'm going to get a lightning strike. that kind of, that kind of really is weird to hear. Weird to hear, and of course, it's put a sour taste in my mouth ever since then. But I try to get over it. But we got some people in the comments section. We got some what so the way we're talking about some of these things today are basically from a futurist mindset. So this guy Coy Tibbet seems to be wanting to advocate the idea that all the stuff in the book of Revelation is past already, and well, the sacrifices aren't going on now. But any good dispensationalist teacher, and I'm not saying you should be a dispensationalist, but it is accounted for that the sacrifices will start back up in the millennium or right before the millennium. So that's really not an issue that stops anything. A lot of people don't know this, but they think that as soon as Jesus died and rose again, that all the Christians just immediately stopped having sacrifices, and that's not the way that it works. Like in Acts 3, they're still going to the temple where sacrifices are being made. When in Acts 21, Paul goes to Jerusalem and takes a Nazirite vow for which an animal has to be sacrificed. So the sacrifices stopped when Jerusalem got destroyed, not because of some doctrinal reason that there's no longer any reason for it. And people are like, well, why are they doing sacrifices, after Christ already died? Well, the sacrifices never saved people in the first place, and they're not going to the next time either.
Yeah, they were still Jews, but they had become Christians. So
yeah, they're still bearded, Sabbath observing, pork abstaining Jews, just just like they always were.
yeah.
They just believed that Jesus was the Messiah.
But Jesus told them, don't refuse any food put before you when you go to the various towns and cities and spread
Right.
the gospel.
Yeah, eat that bacon.
Shrimp here in Louisiana.
Yeah. I just had a crawfish boil yesterday. I've been going to a lot of crawfish boils. That seems to be the thing to do around Easter time.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't see a lot of these other things. It'd be interesting to hear why people think Trump is Antichrist, what some of those reasons are. But I think the Antichrist will be more widely accepted. Like everybody hates Trump, so it's it kind of takes him out of the running for me.
Yeah, I think Trump is modeled by the last good king before the Babylonian exile, and that king's name was Josiah. Because
See, I would, yeah.
Josiah was a swamp cleaner, and that's what Trump is. He's cleaning the
Oh,
swamp.
interesting. Yeah. See, I
And
always thought of Jephthah as Trump.
remind me of Jephthah.
So it was in the book of Judges, and they needed somebody to help deliver the people, and all they could find was this one dude. He was effective, but considered a profane person. And so he went out and he did the work, and he's like, God, if you allow me to be successful, I will sacrifice the first thing that comes out of my door. And of course, his daughter comes out, and there's a big controversy over whether or not he sacrificed her. But this whole idea that you have somebody who is capable but more or less profane is kind of like a type of Jephthah, in my opinion. But I could see Josiah too. Yeah.
Yeah, Josiah died because he basically put out too many tweets and made somebody mad and got killed.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Put out
mean,
too many tweets.
he went up against the Egyptians, and the Egyptians were saying, "Look, I'm just passing through to go have a fight with the Babylonians," and he wound up getting killed. Just
Yeah.
he should have left it alone. That's kind of like Trump should leave some of his tweets. He should just swallow.
Yeah. Probably. Yeah. We got a super chat. One day says, "Appreciate you, Kevin. We do need to discuss these subjects at times." Yeah, it's interesting to make people think about things. Some of these comments. Yeah. Some of them. I'm just gonna let them. I'm just gonna let them sit there.
Well,
All right.
there's a lot of people that as these things that I talk about become true, they make people realize that maybe a lot of what they're idealizing or spending their time on is all going to turn to dust
Yeah.
and be destroyed, burned up. And of course, you can just read Revelations about the whore of Babylon, and you see it's going to disappear. And it's not fun thinking it, but I think it redirects us toward what's the Lord, which is what's important, and others.
Yeah. Yeah. So you said the book is it's on your website for free. People can download the PDF for free.
Yes.
So what do you want people to do with this information? What would traction mean to you?
I would love to see people basically put their eyeballs on Barack Obama and watch him and sort of like develop uh, a warning system. I consider myself a warner, a
Yeah, yeah.
prophet that's a warner. So I'm not bringing good news necessarily. I'm just warning you. And so if I could get people to realize there's the Antichrist. I'm not saying we can do anything about it, but un, un, uncovering the evil,
Yeah.
being aware of the evil, will go a long way to saving who knows how many. People that are lost. They're maybe on the left, or they're bigoted against Trump. Maybe they really, as they begin to see the dirty and the evil of Barack Obama, they might turn their life around.
That'd be interesting because I kind of feel a little hopeless. Like if this is true, like I've never been a fan of the policies of the left. It seems like they take what could be a good idea and they use it as a vehicle to dupe people into letting them get more power, for example. So they may say good things like they want to protect the environment and they want to make sure everybody has rights and all that. That sounds good, but it's been my observation that's not really what they're after. Even the name Democrat, like they call themselves Democratic, and I think it's better to call them Democrat because Democratic is an adjective. And as you can see how like they just appointed Harris, there was nothing democratic about that. It's the
Right.
Democrat Party. They don't operate democratically. Once they seize power, they no longer seek input from the people that they have the power from. And so I've never been a fan of people like that in that camp, people like Barack Obama who operate that way. So I don't know, like, what would having one more reason to not be a fan of Barack Obama, how would that affect my daily life and the people that I interact with and that sort of thing? You know what I mean? I just don't know. I'm trying to find I just don't feel like I have a lot of influence down here at our level, just people? What do we do about it?
Well, I think it takes Christians who have a biblical background to understand what I'm saying to start with. So your audience fits that, and we just got to put the truth out, and then the cards are going to fall where they will. Uh, God's got a plan, and Jeremiah, 50 chapters, he's warning the Jews, hey, bad things are coming, bad things are coming. Uh, Straighten up, quit
Yeah.
your corruption. I mean, he's doing that at God's instruction, and that's the way I feel. I'm to be, I guess, hard headed and tell the truth.
Yeah, put it out there. So I I think it would be fun to have you come back on for further discussions about just prophecy in general and how things are playing out in current events and what it means. So maybe we can set that up and do some more of that stuff.
I'm yours. I'm all yours.
Sounds good. Hey, I appreciate it. Well, I think we're kind of at the end of the discussion today, and we're going to go ahead and sign off. Thanks again to One Day for the super chat. And Stephen Kirk's website is linked in the description below this video. And what else? If you want to support this channel, yeah, you can go to the donate tab, donate page of beyondthefundamentals.com. Support us there if you want to see more content coming out. I got a lot of stuff on Calvinism coming out on this channel. I got lots of sermons we're going to be reviewing coming out from people that have sent them to me, but it's hard to find the time to do so, but that is coming soon to a screen near you. Any last words, Stephen, before we go?
I appreciate your great work. You are a scholar and a gentleman, and I'm glad you're here.
All right. I appreciate it. And with that, I appreciate you coming on today, too. I appreciate your time. And for everybody else, thanks for watching. May the Lord bless you and good day.